Okay, so another question I have is, um, it seems like at different schools, there's different signage, like some of them, they're different hours. So how are the school zones gonna be signed now? And I'm assuming they're all gonna be signed the same.
They're going to be, so we coordinated with the school district on this, and they gave us the hours at which they're going to be signed. So we're going to be signing them based off of the hours that they provided to us. Now, what's going to be different is that some schools have flashing beacons, which work when school's in session. Like for example, Crown Hill does. And we were doing a little bit of work with their flashing beacons there. So those will be on and they'll be active when school's in session based off of the hours that we get from them. But there's, say, Arkansas, for example, doesn't have flashing beacons. We're just upgrading a little bit of the signage out there. So those will be static signs that have the hours on them that the school with us. And I think that's about that Mountain View as well.
So I may be incorrect, but I thought on Perry Avenue, it was like a much more, for drivers, harsh. I'm not saying for everybody else, but, so they're all gonna be, I mean, the hours might change because one's an elementary school versus a middle school, but it's all gonna be the same type of signs. Like it's not gonna be 24 hours a day, or is there? Because they have that sports complex. Does that count at the middle school?
So,
Right.
yeah, the signage,
That's
like,
what they call it.
yeah, so the speed feedback signs will pretty much be active, all the time.
Okay.
And, Mountain View Middle School, we noticed when we're looking at their signage that, there's some extra signage up there. And
Yeah.
signage that doesn't make sense.
Yes.
So we are trying to bring their signage up to meet the NVDC requirements.
Okay.
There.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay.
Just a
Jennifer?
real important question, are these traffic feedback lights, they're gonna have a smiley face, that's what you're talking about?
I like those smiley faces.
Those
They're
are
very
pretty-
motivating for me.
They're gonna have smiley faces, right?
Not that I didn't
So what
speed
happens
before
if you're
them.
speeding? You get,
And
Don't get a
every,
frowny face, it just says it blinks at you, but if you hit it, you get, I'm serious,
Well, I
are they
don't-
gonna have the
yeah.
happy faces?
You know, I think that, it's gonna be dependent on what we get for the product and the contractor, so I can't tell you that.
Well,
But it
I'm
would
gonna be,
pretty
I'm not
cool. It is pretty
kidding.
cool.
I'm
I
not
think
kidding.
it work.
I'm not kidding, I think those ones are more effective, I'm just saying, because you hit the metric and you
We
get a
want
smiley
those happy faces.
We want the happy faces.
at least
See what we
two
get.
of them do. I don't care.
I'm saying, there's gotta be a data-driven, I'm not kidding, there's data on that, on positive reinforcement, I'm serious. All right, thank you. I mean,
the speed feedback signs will be at all of the elementary schools?
Correct. Yes.
And how were these 5 schools chosen?
We, once again, this was, something that we coordinated with the school district.
Okay.
And, they provided to us the schools where they're getting a lot of complaints for speeding. We went out, we performed speed studies, where we were given the information where parents were complaining to the school district and these schools are the ones that, have speeding issues that with this project. Provide traffic.
So we got all the elementary, let's View Ridge, and that's getting all kinds of safety. So basically View Ridge and the high school don't have them.
I just also like to congratulate you on the beautiful phrase, 100% grant funding.
Well, construction.
consent.
Consent?
Consent.
All right.
All right, we're going home early next week.
Don't jinx us on
Say
that.
that.
Okay, folks, that concludes our
Take a quick break.
agenda. I have a request for a quick break. That'd be 7 minutes till 6 o'clock.
Yep. That's my
That's
request.
the
If I can
request.
make it up and.
Request is granted. We'll reconvene at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Good team.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, we're back in session. We're under general council business. The first item is item B1, which is the update on council goals 9 through 12, parks and environmental stewardship. Council, there's a presentation in the packet, and my understanding, which is that topics in the packet, the presentation are going to be discussed tonight. I'm proposing that we pull this item. Specifically, this item is a very good presentation. It has several specific proposals, which are proposed legislation. And as you know, we have council procedures that we should be following regarding proposed legislation, which is 2 or more council members basically bringing it up to council. And then when you have then 3, I believe, I don't have the rules in front of me, basically they meet with our city attorney and they vet out the proposed legislation. And in this case, fortunately, the presentation or the subject matter wasn't vetted with our city attorney. And also in this case, I believe it should be vetted with our DCD director. So without getting into any more specifics, I'm hoping that you support me in pulling this item. I'm not saying we can't talk about it at a future date, but it needs to go through the procedures.
So if it wasn't worded the way it was, we could talk about it, but because it's proposed legislation, we need to hold off until the process.
Or redo
Sure.
the presentation. So most of these items, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, historic preservation policy, community outreach policy. The exception would be, actually, it's not even an exception. So I'll give you an example. Our LTAC committee procedure. What happened? We had 3 council members signed ad hoc. We met. We were all in agreement on what was to occur. And I ran it by our city attorney for her to draft the ordinance. So we followed the proper procedures here. What I'm saying is that for this particular presentation, when I looked at it in the packet, it's got too much specific legislation. Don't want to get into all the details. So there's some other issues there, including there's a state AG memorandum out on land use actions that need to be considered. There's a bunch of issues there. So I'm suggesting that we pull this item.
And so then the committee should go to Kylie,
Yes.
city attorney,
Yes.
go through it all.
Please.
Yes.
What about the portions that are not legislation?
Well, in my opinion, the problem is that I don't want to give credence to the PowerPoint that's in the packet. I'm not comfortable with that.
I want to just voice that I'm a little uncomfortable with it too. I mean, I know we discussed some of these, but this is nothing that I took part in putting together. I think I took part in a couple of discussions related to some of these things. But this is much more comprehensive than I was a part of. And so if there was an ad hoc that met just 2 people, I was not part of it. So some of the discussions were had, but not all of this, not this comprehensively.
I sent an email that was done in my typical boring fashion. It was, here's a proposed action. Here's the rationale.
Did you receive a response from me?
Yes, I received a response from Jane first, and she said, excellent work, counselor. And then I asked you about it at, I believe, our last study session. And you said, if Jane is okay with it, I am fine with it.
I don't recall saying that. I'm sorry. I don't recall that.
So as far as the procedures, and our attorney, Ms. Fennell can correct me if I'm wrong, 1 council member can propose pulling, and that's what I'm doing as your council president. It takes 2 to override me to put it back on the agenda tonight.
I would like it on the agenda. I do think we should pull it until we have it cleaned up legally. And I'm not saying I disagree with anything in there, but I want to make sure we take the proper steps.
And I'm not saying either that I disagree with anything in there. I just don't like, I don't want my role in this misrepresented. And so that's my point in all this too. Thank you for
So
agreeing
you,
to have the attorney take a look at it.
so you disagreed with the email? You thought it was?
Did I reply to your email? It was
So,
a lot.
I think it's all decided. Thank you. So,
Thank you.
I'd be happy to meet with you. Figure out a time for everyone.
That'd be great.
great, thank you. Do we have an update on Council Goal 3, Historic Preservation Policy, or is this something to
No.
be tabled for tonight?
Table.
Okay. Item B3, update on Council Goal I, Community Outreach Policy. Council members Coughlin is not here, Chamberlain and Mochler. We have an update on that?
I don't have a presentation for it. Do you have anything to add for that?
I have the same things that I presented before. I think that we should put those few elements as an outreach policy. For example, that there'd be a one-to-one relationship of contractors, consultants, staff,
Any of this in writing?
community members. No, none of this is in here because apparently putting things in the packet is a bad plan.
Oh,
Whereas if you simply discuss it during council, all is well. All of the things that I presented at that time, Councillor Chamberlain wanted me to find an outreach policy, and I looked at Olympia, I looked at Lakewood, I looked at Everett, and the shortest one of them was 24 pages long, obviously created by a communications person. I don't have the expertise to do that. I'm not a communications manager. So either we can all look up the email that I sent out, whatever, 2 months ago with the few things that I think we should include in the outreach policy and approve it now. Or Councillor Chamberlain, if you have a better suggestion, please go ahead.
And then I have a question.
I don't think that it was just me that requested that. I think that it was kind of a discussion on council that that was the follow-up that we agreed to ad hoc, that you would look up some other policies. My job was to take a look and do some research on that website. And so.
You sent us that link, thank you.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I'm happy to team this with you and look up the policy. Even 20 pages for us to look at would be great if we wanted to. I mean, we can do that. We can look at 20 pages of policy and forward it on to our lawyer, can't we?
Sure. So can I have a question, follow up? So I think we had our council council goal meeting retreat. And then subsequent to that, we hired a community engagement
Exactly.
person, Janice. And there's nothing wrong with us taking credit for the hiring of her and for her to develop policies and for us to adopt those policies. I mean, they're basically our city policies. So what I'm getting at is that the intention of this goal was definitely something that the council considered a priority. And we also considered it a priority to hire this community engagement manager, which we did. And now that's her job. So I almost wonder if we're having a duplication of efforts when we have a subject matter expert in-house that can perhaps have the bandwidth and the expertise to provide a more comprehensive policy than we can by doing. I don't want to belittle the process, but I'm sorry, we just have limited bandwidth, and shouldn't we rely on our expert?
I would imagine she's already doing it.
I would hope so.
I would hope so.
I believe that she is.
Yeah.
I'm sure Anna will mention it at audit report. That was part of Jenny Sims.
But
Yeah, anyway.
perhaps we could ask her to give us a presentation later on in this year to see if it's meeting the council's objectives.
Awesome.
Mayor, would you be open to that?
Yeah, I think, did we establish a feedback plan during the hiring?
I'm not aware if we did.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think an update would be great.
Okay. Right.
I
So,
think an update to council is a great idea.
yes.
And I
So,
can confirm, she is working. We're working on
Yeah.
parts of it together.
This is
There's different, considerations depending on what the issue is and which department it's to be in. I think there's like different types of communications, like emergency
see and like how that goes out versus, developing policy. We're working, she's working on all of this. She's doing
Great. Great.
So are we proposing, President Younger, that maybe we've met this in a sense in our hiring of a professional that's developing this? I mean, we didn't do it, but it's a goal. I don't know. I mean, well, maybe more when we reveal it in the future.
So I think we just follow it up with a presentation, and from the administration and see if the goal's been met to satisfaction of the council. If so,
Excellent.
then we can cross it off.
Excellent.
Now, there is one thing, the high school thing, that's on me, so I gotta do that. Remember, I was assigned outreach program, high schools.
There's a new superintendent. I think he starts July 1st.
Okay. I'll give that person a little bit of time before I bug them.
Wait till the second or third before you send an email.
All right. I'm sure it'd be their highest priority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, sounds like we have addressed that. Now we'll go to our Public Safety Committee briefing. And our chair is Michael Goodnow, but Anna, you're the vice chair.
I am, and I'm having trouble finding it. So can we do Public Works before we do
Sure
Public
can.
Safety? Thank you.
Go ahead, Jane.
I'm happy to. This was the shortest Public Works Committee meeting ever. It's only an hour. And everything we discussed, starting with the PSE with industrial systems, which is on the consent agenda today. Acceptance of grant funds for View Ridge or Safe Routes Phase 2, we put on the consent agenda. Contract award for Sheridan Road sewer replacement. That's on the consent agenda. Contract with New Line Services, doing business as Agate Asphalt for Bremerton Safe Roads to School project is on the consent agenda. I did ask about when the lighting on 11th and Washington is going to be installed. And it's the same contractor who's doing Quincy Square, and to the best of our project manager's knowledge, the luminaires are supposed to be delivered on site sometime in July and hopefully illuminated sometime in August. And that's the end of my
Wow.
1 hour. Yeah, we were there for, I think we banged out at 3:02. Yeah, sorry.
Nice job.
It was Tom Nucky's last.
Oh. So you did him a service. You did him a solid. You had a short meeting. All right.
Public Safety meeting was June 5th, and we reviewed that in the study session. About the outreach on fireworks, Teresa, Randall, Russell. So we've actually already done that this month.
Okay.
Right, so
Audit committee.
have not lost mine. Okay, so the audit committee was a straightforward review of what Auditor Sims, Jenny, is working on. Part of our audit committee work plan. She has been talking to Director Spencer and Director Nucky about what outreach consists of. Her scope has expanded beyond what we originally expected, which was the elements that we see repeated in contract after contract, which is reach out to the community, have one or more open houses, online survey, collate the public comments, analyze the data, present the data. That's like a series of actions that we see over and over again. But now it's moving on into doorbelling before construction events happen, like where they go around and knock on doors and hang a door knocker saying, hey, it's going to be loud, the street's going to be blocked. So nonetheless, we are expecting a report next month. We discussed two possible additions to the work plan. And again, majority of the committee is against review of, against having audit committee place the MFTE on our work plan. The second, they feel that it's gone through finance committee, that there's a lot of
Jane's
data.
done the work. Is
That
it
it's-
Marwan said Jane's done all the work? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just me.
And that, really it's a policy matter that city council should determine. The other item that we are considering putting on the work plan is looking at, the water utilities. When we first brought this up, I kept saying, we want to make sure we don't get out over our shoes. And really what I meant to say is we want to make sure we don't get out over our skis. And for that reason, there's no requirement for audit to ask council if they want them to look at something. I started doing it because the landlord license compliance was sent to the administration and died the death. The surplus city-owned property was sent to the administration and died. The many recommendations on a plain language budget with increased public engagement had got nowhere. So I try to ask council first now in hopes that, right, we're doing stuff that is stuff council approves. So it was after Cami Applebeck and Sean Walsh it was Cami Applebeck presented the manganese treatment. And we started talking about, is the burden of these capital projects falling inequitably on residents of Bremerton? Is the 150% rate that non-residents are paying taking care of these large capital things that come up? And so it was my understanding that a majority of council thought, yeah, that's a sensible thing for audit to look at. So we have been discussing that, there's no urgency, obviously. And then Jennifer had many things to say. So I'm gonna let you
Of
take
course,
it
I
away.
have many things to say always. Sometimes they're just gibberish and really poorly timed jokes. But for this particular item, my memory, and I'm just as fallible as the rest of us, but I believe it was April 6th study session. We did talk about the manganese treatment plant. We had a discussion about rates. And my recollection was that a majority of council did not wish to pursue this. And that was because we had kind of a discussion about the rates, that we can't discriminate between non-resident and resident ratepayers, that they're going to receive upgrades in the same way that our city residents are. We had a little bit of that explained to us. So I would love to have a discussion and to see what the consensus is, or we could even go back to the April 6th meeting. I haven't previewed it yet to see if there was consensus.
I don't remember it like that. I remember being kind of shocked at some of the prices because most of the people who live in the city and pay the 100% are not on well water. And the well water that we keep having to develop for all these urban growth areas is much more expensive to produce good water, right? So I felt that we did want to look at that to make sure that the 150% is covering it, because it is so much more expensive for us to produce water for the most part outside of city limits.
I don't remember audit committee. And we could throw so much at audit committee, as things come up that we need analysis of, because we don't have enough resources for that. I realize that, even though we have Ann Williams now on staff. So I want to be cautious with it. My understanding is that we all really try to come to consensus about anything being recommended to the audit committee for a full-blown work, item. And at least that's my sense. And I don't remember this hitting that
No, I remember there was discussion, there was some concerns that they weren't fully covering the cost, that most of this was for ratepayers outside the city limits. And then we were reminded that y- don't, don't be confused, we are a water provider. And that includes customers outside the city. And they have just as right of expectations of having clean water, meets all the standards as a resident.
Sure.
And we did not remand it to the audit committee to see if the pricing structure, we're like, well, we do charge 150% more. And my recollection is like, well, that's the way it works out. It just happens to be benefiting or improving the water system that you're not happen to be in the city, but it's a different thing. This is a water provider. We're confusing it with residents of Bremerton, and we're confusing it with urban growth areas and policies or whatever. And at the end of the day, at the meeting, we approved it and the agenda bill item for that purchase or those services. And I thought that was the end of it.
Okay, if you guys don't want the audit committee to have it on the work plan, we can always look at small attractive assets.
I also had another kind of question I wanted to bring up. And so our auditor, there's a couple things. Our auditor is doing a lot of work on a communications and outreach cost comparison, which is what Anna brought up. I don't remember her detailing all the things that she just did today, but that's probably what she's working on with her plan, with her report. But the focus seems to be on hiring a communications and outreach FTE. But I don't know if that's where the direction that council really wants it to go anymore, now that we've hired Dr. Briggs. And so what I really appreciate about this research is that we're learning all the different ways that all of our money is going to these contracts for outreach and communication. Sometimes there are things that Councilor Walker didn't mention, like stakeholder meetings with PSNS, specialized stakeholder meetings. I'm very interested in this research, mostly to find out if our money is being wisely spent on outreach and communications. I'm less concerned about this direction being to hire an additional person, because I don't think that's where we're going with this particular item.
I think it depends on how much we're spending. Like, I look at some of the contracts and see a large amount subcontracted out to a firm who's sitting there taking our names at a public meeting. And so, for a lot of money. So those are the types of things, like, can we bring that in-house instead of contracting it out? And we're not going to know if it needs to be in-house or ask that it, be a half-time person or whatever, until we know how much we're actually spending on all these contracts.
Here's another aspect of that. I have been to community meetings, public meetings, where presentations have been made, boards have been created, all of that kind of stuff. And I have had some good interactions with some of those. Some aren't just there to gather signatures of people who have
But usually, like, for instance, when we went to the public presentation for 6th Street. So all those boards and all that information we were looking at was done by the design consultant. And then they contracted out to another company that was gathering our info cards and our names and our address. So it wasn't like that community outreach company was doing the presentation boards. So that's because it's a separate contract, because if you look at, so it's just.
Do we know that could have been?
Boy,
we know that could
this
have
is
been
worth the amount of money we pay that auditor.
And another point I want to make is our auditor and our staff, they're 0.8. They are 0.8. And I just don't want their wheels to be spinning. I'm just worried about the time being spent on some things. And I would like.
A lot of cities our size don't even have an auditor.
Right.
I just want to say that. And we're using it. I'm not saying that we're not culpable for this. anything that the council has decided or the audit committee, whoever has decided. But boy, we almost need an audit committee to look at how the audit committee is being used.
Well,
With custodian.
And the point of saying that there's a 0.8 FTE is, and I brought it up last time and I was kind of rebuked a little bit for it, but I was like, historically, has audit committee met every month? And it would be, for it's time that's taken by the auditor and staff to prepare minutes, to prepare the meeting minutes, to prepare the agenda, to prepare the presentations. And a big, we have the work plan, we have this communications and outreach cost comparison, we have additional things we're adding to the work plan. And I just wonder if it's too much for such a small FTE, if it's possible, and I'll take, to meet less often. And I'm not alone in that. And it's not that I'm trying to shirk my duty as an audit committee member. I'm just thinking of how wisely we can spend this 0.8 FTE that we have. One thing that Anna didn't mention is that there was a really great police evidence inventory memo that was presented, which showed that all of their stuff is in order. So they did a forwards and backwards kind of audit, and everything checked out. So yay to the police department. But then I asked her, have you ever seen meth? Would you know if a particular type of gun is the right kind of gun? And I don't think they have an answer for that. But really, the numbers and everything they did forwards and backwards checked out on their random list. So that was good to know.
Well, the police department has its own organizations that audit it too.
Chain of evidence. They preserve.
Exactly. Yeah. So it better be. And it was, yeah.
Well, your suggestion that you have audit committee meetings less often, I don't know, I kind of feel that's a disservice to the community members who are on the audit committee. Because I know some of the, like commissions meet every month, right?
Mhm.
And so and most of our committees meet every month.
Do they have a full-time FTE in the department backing them?
Well, Public Works, I'm sure they put a lot of staff time into a
Right.
meeting, and they're preparing an agenda and preparing minutes, so.
Right. That's what I mean. It's like all these, like even commissions have like a full-time FTE.
Well, the
You know,
audit committee is
supporting them.
actually quite different from all the other committees. It's the only one that is set up in the city charter
Mhm.
and with these requirements. So
Is it a requirement to meet monthly?
I'll just go on shy.
It was just a direct question because you said it was with these requirements. I didn't know if you meant these requirements meaning to meet monthly.
I'll look it up while you guys have your discussion.
Thank you.
So if you want to bring it to the audit committee and ask the audit committee if they want to meet less often, my understanding is that since Auditor Sims no longer works down the corridor, and that this is our only contact with her every month. It has proved useful in the past to refine and to explain, and it has also given an opportunity for community members to propose things that they want to add to the work plan and to better understand how council works and how the auditor works. I echo Jane's concern for the community members. Deborah McDaniel is the vice chair of audit. I know this has been a tough year for you, and I'm really glad you were able to come to this last meeting. But it's typically there'll be two community members, and they have a lot of input and they have a lot to bring to the table. So I think a monthly meeting is what everyone expected when they signed on, and it's typically less than an hour.
How much of Jenny's time is taken up, of her full time is taken up in attending meetings?
1 hour a month.
Okay.
It's not just 1 hour a month. I mean, think about preparing.
So why do you want less interaction with the public?
With what public?
The public
You mean the
on the
public
audit
members?
committee.
I don't think it's that. I think that just seeing, I think I'm just concerned with how much we're putting on our auditor and our staff. And this isn't the only meeting that I was in attendance to. And I just wonder if the staff has similar concerns about the time that it's taking and that they want their time to be used wisely too. I can't speak for them.
But then why don't we ask them?
Mhm.
You could ask at the next audit committee, you could ask them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's ask them
Instead of
and see.
making, you can't make assumptions of.
That's
you know,
right.
what they think is time wasted.
Set it on.
Yeah, there was really nothing else. Marwan Cameron brought up a bunch of stuff last month that he would like to add to the work plan, and we kept saying, that's not in the purview of the audit committee. So he has promised us an email, and he renewed that promise Monday night. That's it.
By the way, in the city charter, it's section 8, the auditor does not call out specifically monthly meetings, but neither does anything else.
True.
And I mean, even finance doesn't meet every single month.
Yes, we do.
No, they stop after the budget.
That's not true.
When I was on finance.
Yeah,
We don't meet in December.
Yeah.
But and we have a 2-year budget, so that means we wouldn't meet for a whole year.
No, that's not what I meant to.
Well, we don't meet in December.
Right. And sometimes in November.
I believe so. I believe you're both correct. Hey, are we ready to move on to Parks
Yes.
Finance?
Thank you
and
for the
Investment?
discussion, everyone.
So Jeff's not here. Parks Finance and Investment. Anna? Wait.
Not on that one either.
Gosh darn it. I'm terrible. Terrible.
And I was at the meeting yesterday. I don't have my notes with me. I didn't expect I had to do this.
Expenditures continue out.
Would you
Yes.
say we're broke? Is that
Yes.
something?
We are broke.
All right.
There you go.
So,
Got
I'm the
anything?
only one
to-
that's saying this.
so we're hopeful that when we start getting more property tax revenue, that it straightens out a little bit. But yeah, we're spending more than we're taking in every single month.
What are the creative solutions that administration has come up with for this?
I haven't heard any.
We'll hear
They
that,
haven't
I'm
been
sure,
brought
at
up
our mid-year budget review, which
Would selling parcels even? I mean, it takes time, but would even put a dent in it?
No, I mean, unless we sold the stuff out in Tahuya or wherever it is, a big chunk, that might get us something.
Hmm.
until we really know what we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have this month's expenditure, so we can't do a mid-year until at least the end of July.
So you remember we did pass a budget that had built-in deficits. So this is not a super big surprise, but the question is it a bigger surprise than you anticipated?
Right.
Yes, it is.
Right, so more to come.
How much?
Going to regional and other committee board briefings. Gets up transit, Champlin?
Kids Have Transit was actually fun. I know. One thing that's fun is that there is a microphone that hangs from the ceiling during the study sessions. So you can hear everything in the whole room.
It's nice.
It's really pleasant. Okay, so mostly, I've been on Kids Have Transit since March 2022. And in all that time, we have not had an accurate count of ridership. So now they've gone full tilt boogie, and they have literally what is called clever devices, which a blue box powers the system. It shows each bus and all dispatchers where each bus is, where it should be, and activates automatic announcement of that information. Overhead laser scanner is sensitive enough to tell if a passenger is carrying a baby or a bag of groceries. It counts passengers, sees wheelchairs. It can tell if you need your manicure redone probably. The new system has
How much
fields,
does that cost? Do you have any idea?
many.
Yeah.
It's not even in the packet. It's something that we approved in early 2024, and it was going to be a ton of money. And at that time, as I often do, I said, the drivers just have clickers. And it was explained to me that would be too much paperwork for them. So carrying on with this, the clever device. The new system has fields for where passengers get on and off, the day, the time of day. It lets us determine the most popular stops so we can determine where bus shelters might be needed. Where more time, like if they're loading around, because they've rerouted much earlier this year to include St. Michael's on a lot more routes. So you're going to assume that people need more time to load and unload at St. Michael's. They can craft personalized rider alerts, like only on, like if you only work 3 days a week, you can only get them on those days. KTtracker.com lets you see where your bus is, when it's expected to hit your stop, etc. I lived in a bus dependent neighborhood in New York City. It was a 20-minute walk to the subway. It was a bus dependent neighborhood. And when this tracker came in that let you know when the bus was coming, and so when you had to leave your house in order to catch the bus instead of standing outside in the pouring rain or whatever, it's at that time, it was one of the most depressed neighborhoods in all of Brooklyn, and it is now one of the 2 most expensive. It, as a driver for economic development, knowing when the heck your bus is coming, and if it's not just when it's scheduled, but if it's actually coming, is huge. Hold on.
Other board meetings, Jane?
It's not a board meeting.
Other general council business?
Okay. So I've been corresponding with Jeff while he's in training. And so the purchase and sale agreement for the property that the entrance is going to be. The paper copy came in yesterday, and as of 1:45 this afternoon, BHA still hadn't gotten the DocuSign to sign it, so if that is imminent. Okay, so that's good news.
Totally.
To make a deal for MLPs.
Yeah. Oh, more will be revealed, won't it? Yeah.
Other general council business?
Something upcoming.
Okay.
So I'm doing an affordable housing forum, just really small scale. I'm hoping it'll get scaled up for my next town hall. 20 Ives on housing for the homeless, Jill Stanton on subsidized housing, and a guy, John Dombowski, who works with Julie Cooper at Washington Department of Commerce on a sort of affordable housing overview. It's set up so that everybody speaks for 10 minutes. I personally will restrain Tony Ives at the exactly 10-minute mark. 5 minutes for clarifying questions. So after the first 45 minutes will be a general discussion. So I'm just telling you this because
It's a good team of people.
So when that's your July meeting?
yeah, it's the July meeting, July 14th.
Still in town.
Okay, Bastille Day.
Yeah.
We will sing the
Burning down.
Marseillaise.
That it?
We have a little extra time, so I'd like to bring it up and then just kind of put it on your radar that I'd like to follow up at a future meeting, and I'm curious if anybody else is interested in this, but Joe Walter spoke at one of our meetings, and she brought forward a letter that had a couple examples from the State of Washington Human Rights Commission. And I'm trying to find the one, but I am interested in revisiting it. What I don't want to do is bring a lot of chaos and hatred to our chambers, but this has to do with the Human Rights Commission resolution condemning anti-Semitism. And I just wonder if anybody else is interested in looking at the differences and having a discussion about that at a future study session, looking at the differences between the Washington State Human Rights Commission and then the one that we adopted by the other one that we we put together or that we approved. It seems like there's some problematic things happening. Some folks are being deported from other states, not our state, as far as I can see, but based on the definition that we approved. So, is this something that would be of value for discussion at a future study session under general council business? Is there anybody else?
I agree.
So you're,
I'd like to look at both definitions side by side.
Right.
Yep.
Just a side by side.
so here the point is that Jews have created an atmosphere of anti-Semitism and that they are being unfairly favored. What I'm not fully understanding what you're talking about, Jennifer. Could you want to look at the anti-Semitism definition,
Yeah,
The
the
one that we
one we
passed.
passed, and then. the
and you
one
want
we
to reopen that?
I'm just curious about looking at them side by side.
Is our goal to fill the chamber with signage, or is our goal to protect immigrants in our community?
I think my purpose in bringing the discussion up is to have a more balanced and less problematic, if possible, way to condemn anti-Semitism, a way that is agreeable to multiple communities of people. And the Washington State Human Rights Commission is an overseer of our Washington State legislature. So a lot of our legislature is based upon, and I don't want to misspeak because.
Well, as the only Jew on council, I would like to say that I think that the pretense of anti-Semitism on campuses as an excuse to violate our basic constitutional rights is just way out of line. That's the most charitable language I can use.
I'm
Right
sorry,
So
I don't understand what this, can you elaborate on what you're speaking about
yeah,
specifically?
that
Thank you.
basically the current administration has stated that they are carrying out these raids with masked
Mhm.
ICE agents in order to stamp out anti-Semitism.
Right.
Not in my name.
No.
Yeah. I think if our goal is to protect the people in our community, that we could do it way less roundabout way. Kitsap County had an actual forum on immigration where it gave regular people tools to be allies and help people who were possibly being taken off the streets.
And I think thank you, that's part of it. Another part is really to be in alignment with our Washington State legislature. And so it's not just a one prong kind of a approach.
I don't want to do it, but I'm one of 7.
I'm not interested either.
Okay.
I kind of feel like this was decided.
Okay. All right.
I would like the discussion, but it doesn't seem like there's a majority. So, Ms. Walters did send us copies.
Sure.
So I just encourage everybody to read what was adopted by council and what the Human Rights Commission of Washington adopted, and see if you have any concerns with one or the other.
Are we ready to go into executive session?
Thank you
Yes.
for the discussion.
Sure.
Perhaps we can have 2
Breaks?
multiple executive sessions.
I don't think so. Announced one.
That's the one.
All right.
So the council will now meet for 15 minutes to discuss potential litigation as allowed under RCW 42.30.110, parentheses 1, parentheses I. Please note, action is anticipated. Therefore, prior to taking action, we'll be taking public comment. We are now breaking for executive session, and I would start my time.
There's one time we would have public comment, that'll be executive session.
Oh, no, don't.
Don't
wish for it.
One Okay, folks, we're back out of executive session. I believe our city attorney, Fennell, has an announcement.
Sure. So the city attorney's office is on tonight to ask that the council authorize the city attorney's office to pursue legal action to preserve city's federal grant funding and challenge unlawful conditions. And so I appreciate the opportunity to have this on, and I think this is necessary to maintain programs like our CDBG funding as well as some other ones. And so I'm asking that the council authorize me to continue to explore that option and take the necessary legal action to make sure that we maintain that funding.
Okay, thank you. Before we read someone potentially reads the motion, I'm going to see if any member of the public wish to comment on this item. See anybody? So let me look as participants. See if I got 3 attendees, and I'm waiting to see if anybody wants to raise their hand. No one is raising their hand. So now I'll turn to the council for motion. Councilmember Chamberlain.
Chair, move to authorize the city attorney to pursue legal action necessary to challenge unlawful federal grant conditions that threaten funds needed to support critical programs and services.
I second.
We have a motion, a second. Call for the question. So I'll go ahead and do the polling. Councilmember Chamberlain.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogalowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Fry.
Yes.
Councilmember Mockler.
Yes.
Myself is yes. So it's unanimous, 5-0.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, reminder that the next council meeting will be on Wednesday, July 2nd, starting at 5:30 p.m. in the first floor meeting chambers in Norm Dix Government Center. Public is invited to attend in person or remotely. Anyone wishing to speak during public recognition via Zoom must submit their request through the city clerk by calling 360-473-5323 at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. A good meeting, folks. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.